government abandons plans to delay 30 council elections. The government has abandoned plans to delay 30 council elections in England following legal advice. Local government Secretary Steve Reed had approved delays for the ballots for the councils until 2027 to help deliver a major reorganisation, which will see some local authorities abolished. Reform UK had launched a legal challenge against the plans to delay May's elections, which was due to be heard in the High Court. In politics, timing is everything. And sometimes, timing is taken away altogether. This week, the British government found itself reversing course on a controversial decision that would have postponed 30 council elections across England. What began as a bold administrative maneuver ended as a sharp reminder that in a democracy, even the most carefully laid plans must survive the scrutiny of law. At the center of the storm stood Steve Reed, the local government secretary, who had initially approved the delay. The rationale was strategic, to pave the way for a sweeping reorganization of local authorities, one that could see several councils merged, reshaped, or abolished entirely by 2027. The government framed the postponement as practical governance. Critics saw it as democratic disruption. The proposal would have affected 30 councils scheduled to hold elections in May. For local communities, these elections are not mere formalities. They determine who manages housing, waste collection, planning permissions, local transport, and essential social services. They shape the everyday realities of towns and cities across England. Delaying them was not simply a bureaucratic adjustment. It was a pause on public accountability. The political temperature rose quickly. Opposition voices questioned the precedent. Was this an administrative necessity or a dangerous flexibility in electoral timing? Into that debate stepped Reform UK, launching a legal challenge that pushed the issue from Parliament into the courts. The case was scheduled to be heard in the High Court, raising the prospect of judges weighing the balance between executive authority and democratic obligation. But before that legal showdown could unfold, the government stepped back. The Ministry of Housing, Communities, and Local Government announced that, following legal advice, the original decision had been withdrawn. The elections would proceed as planned. That phrase, following legal advice, carries quiet weight. It suggests that somewhere behind closed doors, constitutional boundaries were tested. Legal experts likely examined statutory frameworks governing local elections, democratic mandates, and ministerial powers. The conclusion appears to have been clear. The postponement could not withstand scrutiny. In abandoning the delay, the government avoided a courtroom confrontation that might have set a defining precedent. A High Court ruling against the plan would not only have halted the postponement, but potentially constrained future governments seeking similar flexibility. By reversing course preemptively, ministers regained control of the narrative, though not without absorbing political cost. For Steve Reed, the episode represents a delicate moment. His broader ambition, a significant reorganization of local governance, remains intact. Structural reform often requires transitional disruption. Merging authorities, redrawing boundaries, and eliminating duplication are rarely seamless processes. The argument for delay rested on administrative coherence. Why elect councillors to bodies that might soon cease to exist? Yet democracy has its own coherence. Elections are cyclical promises. They reaffirm that power is temporary and answerable. Interrupting that cycle, even for structural efficiency, unsettles the foundational rhythm of public life. The backlash to the delay was not merely partisan, it was philosophical. It touched on trust. For Reform UK, the legal challenge was both strategic and symbolic. By positioning itself as a defender of electoral integrity, the party tapped into a broader sensitivity within British politics, the sanctity of the ballot. Regardless of ideological divides, few principles command more universal agreement than the right to vote on time. The withdrawal also underscores the quiet power of judicial oversight in the United Kingdom's uncodified constitution. Without a single written constitutional document, Britain relies on statutes, conventions, and judicial interpretation to define limits. In this case, the mere prospect of judicial intervention was enough to recalibrate executive action. Now, attention shifts back to May. The 30 councils initially facing delay will proceed with elections, injecting renewed energy into local campaigns. Candidates who may have paused their preparations must re-engage quickly. Communities that feared democratic postponement can prepare to cast ballots as expected. Yet the broader question lingers: how should governments manage structural reform without undermining democratic cadence? Local government reorganization is not inherently controversial. Over decades, successive administrations have redrawn boundaries to improve efficiency, reflect population changes, or streamline services. But the mechanism of change matters as much as the change itself. Transparency, consultation, and electoral continuity are pillars that support legitimacy. This episode may ultimately strengthen the reform process rather than weaken it. By encountering resistance early, the government has been reminded that procedural safeguards are not obstacles, they are foundations. Any future attempt to adjust electoral timelines will likely be framed with greater legal clarity and parliamentary scrutiny. For voters, the message is straightforward. The ballot remains protected. For ministers, it is more nuanced. Ambition must align with constitutional resilience. And for the political system as a whole, the abandoned delay offers a subtle affirmation. Democracy is not just about outcomes. It is about process. Even in moments of administrative urgency, the rhythm of elections cannot be treated as flexible. As this breaking story continues to unfold, one thing is certain: May's council elections will carry more than the usual local stakes. They will stand as a quiet testament to the tension and balance between governance and accountability. Thursday, the Ministry of Housing, Communities, and Local Government said, following legal advice, the government had withdrawn its original decision to postpone 30 local elections in May. This breaking news story is being updated, and more details will be published shortly. Please refresh the page for the fullest version.